All right, buddy. Today we're talking about yard work. Welcome to the podcast.
Lots and lots of yard work. No, we're just kidding. But we will weave in a little bit of yard work conversation because it's that time of year and how it affects stress and days off. But no, on a serious note, it's May 12th, year 2023. Welcome aboard, everybody. You're listening to the Crushing Iron Podcast, episode 684.
Yeah, it's a great day for 684.
A day for 684. It's been a long week, a long, arduous week where we are still here. We're kicking. We are a day late, but always on time, getting it in twice a week. As we have, it's your first time tuning in. Welcome. We appreciate you giving us your time. We know you have quite a lot of options in the triathlon podcast universe and just podcast in general terms of valuable. So we appreciate you tuning in today. We cover it all. We do swim, bike, and run specific podcasts. We do race recaps and also a lot of race previews. But for the most part, Mike and I as coaches, athletes, best friends, we just sit back, relax, have an open, honest discussion about what we're going through in life, not just as human beings on our planet, but also as coaches and athletes ourselves. We also talk frequently about what our own athletes are going through. Mike and I work with a wide range of athletes all across the globe, from beginner level triathletes looking at the very first 5K or sprint triathlon, all the way up through elite level amateurs trying to get back to the world championships and everyone in between from all over the globe. And we'll use the feedback loop we have with them and training peaks, emails, text messages, and the like to drive the discussion of the day. We also utilize our Facebook group. You can search that, Crushing Iron Group. Answer one simple question, we'll let you right in. Awesome people, fantastic community, solid resource in a sport that is way too overcomplicated, and it doesn't have to be. It can be a lot easier. It can be simplified. So there's a lot of great people in there that have been around the block, raced for a long, long time, done it all, been there, beginners, amateurs, even some semi-pros. So a lot of great info in there. Participate. Don't be a lurker. Participate in our community and ask questions if you have them and give answers if you got them. We'll go in there about once a month, do a little bit of a Q&A, take the pulse of the community, answer as many questions as we can. But that's it. We don't do sponsors. We don't do ads. But we do have an agenda, and that is when we try to drive home consistently, and that is to keep you happy and healthy in your endurance sports journey.
Dude, I took a sip of coffee, and you're already into the open. I didn't even notice.
Listen, I was micro machine this morning. I'm on my third cup of coffee. I just figured I'd ease right into it. And, hey, like I'm trying to, you've had not the greatest week. So I'm trying to, carry the load a little bit and put you at ease and make sure you can kind of, keep stress at a minimum, which is, coincidentally, the kind of the topic for today. Days off, stress, heat. Yeah. How to really adjust things and when to say when or when to push the button.
When to say when. Well, you said something right away, or maybe, no, it was in the open, about how you, even on a tough day, you like to get a little workout in because it helps you sleep. I've had a terrible week of sleep. I know I don't want to go into this but my little dog had a seizure on Monday and Tuesday night, and it has freaked the shit out of me. I don't know if anybody's ever been through that, probably a lot of people, but it was the craziest thing ever. But so I've had a lot going on this week, and I haven't done much training at all, and I've been sleeping like shit. And that's not the topic, but when you said that, that's what I thought was like, damn it, I felt tired and a lot going on, and it's tough to get out and work out, but I think sometimes just moving and everything like that, or otherwise it can kind of compound it, like just taking, those nights when you can't sleep and then you just kind of go through the motions and you're not moving. I've been real close a couple times to getting to the gym and stuff or running, but I just haven't, and I haven't slept well all week either. So that'll kick off the podcast. You had some really interesting thoughts about that, and
yeah, I mean, it is a, as I was so wonderfully reminded on my run this morning, my first high humidity, high dew point run, where everything was slower, heart rate was higher, and you're just kind of like your legs are a little bit sore. It's very similar. It's a transitional type of season, kind of like when it goes from really, really nice fall to like really, really, really cold. In the wintertime, people tend to go out for these easier runs, and you're moving faster, right? Because the dew point's lower, the temp's lower, the humidity's lower. And you're running a little bit faster because effort's lower. Again, effort's lower, pace is easier. RPE is easier, but your legs aren't ready for it. And then with the cold weather, a lot of times people are a lot more sore, like in their legs and their quads. So it takes a little bit of kind of a transition to get used to. Well, same thing happens after like the very first, especially with running, like the first, like for me, 4 to 5 runs that I do outside when we go from beautiful spring, which, seems like it lasted all of, 12 days, right into summer. And it's hot and the humidity's high and the dew point's high, and you sweat a lot more and you feel a lot more fatigued when you're done. Your RPE is higher. You sweat. You also sweat. I mean, I swear I sweat more today on my run than probably all last week combined, like total combined. And so a lot of things have to change in terms of, feeling before the run, feeling during the run, feeling after the run. And people that don't do that or have gotten in the habit of that, fall and winter, where you could kind of just like, hell, I went out for an hour and last week, it feels like it was 7 years ago. Last week I went out and ran for an hour and 45 minutes with nothing, just because it was cool. It was perfect out. I ran like, I think 11, 12 miles, felt amazing. No water before, no water during, just felt awesome because it was cool. It was easy. Today, woke up, down to bottle EFS, went out and ran. And after like 30 minutes, I didn't take anything with me, which probably wasn't the brightest idea. We don't claim to be the brightest. We claim to be the most experienced. And that goes with mistakes. And after like 45 minutes, I was like, this is going to suck big time. And it did. It was not very fun. Lesson learned, hopefully. But it's a time of year where you've got a lot of races coming up. You got Gulf Coast this weekend, which is tomorrow. Super humid race. I think one of our athletes called it Gulf Roast instead of Gulf Coast, because it's always like that first hot temp race this season. You got Chattanooga 70.3 next week, which is always like, again, kind of a hot one where you haven't gotten time to get used to it. And so it's a very kind of hard race to navigate. You got outdoor stuff you're doing with your kids or with, barbecues or hanging out with, buddies, going to the pool, and you're just out in the elements a lot more, right? You're out, you're ready for the sunshine. The sun's up early, it goes down late, and you're outside and you're doing a lot. And so I was going to talk just in general about, acclimating yourself to the heat, things. We've done that a lot, and we've got plenty of podcasts. Again, go back. We've got plenty of podcasts you can search for about how to acclimate to the heat, the transition of the seasons. If you're doing Chattanooga 70.3 next weekend, we've got 2 or 3 race previews and race recaps from that. So go check out those. But one of the topics I want to talk about today was the mysterious and oftentimes woefully misplaced day off. I am on record a lot of times that I don't like to schedule days off for a lot of reasons. One, because they're hard to predict, especially for age group athletes that have jobs, that have parental responsibilities, or they have something they have to do with their spouse. It's very hard to predict, right? When it's not just your job. A lot of coaches just kind of toss in the traditional Monday day off, which, yeah, for a lot of reasons, I don't think that's necessarily the way to do it. Having said that, I was joking about this on this kind of topic of how to actually utilize, where to place, and get the most out of a day off. Because I think when athletes hear day off from training, right, they hear day off from triathlon training. So that's good for me, and I'm going to soak in a lot of the hard work that I did. Well, something that we say a lot in the podcast is stress is stress. Stress is stress, right? So whether you're accumulating in your personal life, in your professional life, whether you're accumulating it in training stress, your body feels it, right? It feels stress. You can go on a 8-hour road trip and do literally nothing but sit. You're not exercising, you're not doing anything physical, and you're destroyed. You're so tired. You're mentally exhausted. You can have a hard day at work, right? Your boss calls many times. They calls extra meetings. You're stressed about a deadline or a project you got to do. Increased stress. What are you? Tired, right? Mental fatigue, emotional fatigue, physical fatigue. Your body knows stress. So when you consider, right, days off, and I was telling you this for the podcast, I've known, it's been interesting, like as I've started to track like my resting heart rate, my HRV, all these kind of like metric points of when I sleep. that during my recovery weeks, right? So a little bit of a period of down training where I take, I think, probably 2 days off and the rest of the time is easy. Traditional thinking would think, oh, well, training, quote unquote, stress is lighter. So your resting heart rate should be lower. HRV should be higher. Mine is the opposite, right? So my resting heart rate goes up, my HRV goes down. And a little bit that's just because you're not doing, as much aerobic training. So you'll see a small little dip. But what I've figured out and what I'm going to start experimenting with is that usual, if I feel like I need to take a day in the past or schedule a super easy day or an optional swim, bike, run, I spend it on a Monday. Monday for a coach, at least for me, Mondays are without question the most stressful. You open up Training Peaks. You've got, this time of year, you've got, 10, 20, whatever, how many athletes that raced, right? So you read race recaps, you go through the races themselves. You've probably been tracking all weekend. You go through all your athletes' workouts from Friday PM, right, through Saturday and Sunday. We do like an athlete weekly summary where athletes check in with you. So you go kind of a training wise, deep dive, and then athletes write about how they're feeling, right? Not just about how they're feeling training wise, but how they're feeling emotionally, physically, what's going on in their life. Sometimes it's great, sometimes it's terrible. So Mondays are always insanely stressful. And so from a time standpoint, you're like, all right, well, if I'm going to have it takes me the most amount of time. So from a time standpoint, it's probably best to make that my short day. What I have found is that I actually do better. And so before I go any further, not training, right? Triathlon training, swim, bike, run. Does this sound like a day off of stress? No, 100% no. Okay. A day off, right, in your calendar or taken, you need to start rethinking how you see and plan and maybe even word, right? Instead of day off, it should probably be titled focused recovery, right? Where every bit of you can focus on being still, relaxing, lowering, emotional and mental stress, right? Chilling out, sit in your Normatec boots, right? Go to the sauna or the steam room or just relax and let loose, right? Not just from triathlon training, but from life, because it all affects you. All kinds of stress can increase inflammation, raise cortisol levels, right? And inhibit your ability to recover. It's, very similar to when athletes say, yeah, I didn't have time for my 45-minute run today. So I went out and, because I went out and, put down 100 bags of mulch and went and sat in the 110-degree sun and watched 4 baseball games. So I took the day off. And I'm thinking that is the opposite of the day. That's actually way more stress than the 45-minute run that I gave you. And then what they say is, well, so can I move that to tomorrow or can I add on more? No. Mm-hmm. A day off is to recuperate, regenerate, and recover. Right? To decrease inflammation, to promote recovery so you can soak in the work that you do. So when you schedule these days off and it's on your busiest day, it's actually probably counterproductive to instead find 30-minute super chill run, right? Post day or even the morning, right? Or for me, it's always like an hour and 15-minute easy aerobic spin just to kind of unwind from the day. Right? Decrease my stress level. And then later on in the week, if I feel like I need one, then I'll take one when I can just maybe, get done an hour and a half earlier, with work, and then maybe chill out and watch Netflix for an hour before Hayden comes home from school. Right? That's a way to chill and get the benefits and let the work that you've done soak in. But if you choose to just take your day off from triathlon training and overload your life, then no wonder you're not recovering and a day off doesn't feel like one. So again, I know I wove a lot in there, but I think it's something that we really don't talk about enough in terms of how to place them, why you shouldn't just have concrete days, and then considerations that if it is a day off, to make it a day off, because it is like a true, right? You can't always have a true day off from life unless you're single with no kids and a 9-to-5 job Monday through Friday. You still got life stress, but do what you can to minimize it, right? And then also recognize on the days that you have high stress, that maybe weaving something in later in the day, again, an easy aerobic ride, not something to dig your hole, but something to help dissipate the stress, right? Decrease inflammation, lower your cortisol levels, right? Is probably going to set you up better for the next day. Right. And that would be my, like, so just as an example, if you got a super high stress day and then the next day you can have as a chill one, most people would say, all right, I'm going to take the stressful day off and then I'm going to just really hammer it out the next day. Well, then you're having back to back 2 days of like high stress. What I'd recommend on a day like that is like you take the high stress day, you get an aerobic work in, or maybe, it's weave in a little bit of an intensity if it wasn't that stressful. And then the next day, if you can really truly dedicate it to a day off and you need it for the week, right? Because the rest of the week is laid out to where you've got more intensity, you got more work to do, then make that your day off. So you can soak it in and come back fresh. If not, think about it. Again, removing triathlon training and swim, bike, and run, and just look at the total stress. You're looking at Monday through Sunday stress, period, right? Probably too many hard workouts, probably too much quality, too much intensity, no real easy days to dissipate stress or recover. It's too much, too often. And again, we do a really, really bad job. Most athletes do this, especially if they self-coach, of understanding stress is stress and it impacts everything that you do, especially in training.
Yeah. I find it's a different kind of tired too. Like this week I've just been wiped out, but then earlier in the year, I was doing that, we were screwing around with that, was it Hard 75 or whatever, where you work out for, I think it was an hour and a half a day or something like that for 75 days or something. And there was a lot of times at night when I was like, shit, I got to get down on the bike and knock out that final 30 minutes or whatever. And I was tired, but it was just like I could tell I was in a better place, even though I was tired. I don't know. It was just different kind of, like this week I've just been absolutely shell shocked. And I should mention that my Maddie is doing fine now, or seems to be. So, but yeah, man, it's like the whole, we get on this calendar thing, and, I think back to when I was working the corporate life, and it was like, I work Monday through Friday from 9 till 6 usually, and I was always just wiped out from that job, and it was just super stressful. I didn't like going in, and I would get done, and I would usually go to the village pub afterwards, and that was my way of decompressing. But when I was in a good training group, I actually trained, I think, better during that time sometimes, because what I figured out was I would just, get through the morning or whatever, and then I would just, instead of going and sitting around and eating greasy food with people I work with, I would start going to the Y, and I would swim at lunch. And that was a game changer, because it took that sort of like lethargic tired out of my body and gave me a little wake up, and the afternoon was a lot easier. And then when I got home, I felt better, and I would, get my run or bike in when I got home. So it was like this, Monday through Friday thing. And then Saturday and Sunday, you'd have your big ride and run or whatever. But like when you add triathlon, before triathlon, Saturday and Sunday were kind of playtime. But now it's like you look at our calendar, which calendars are kind of weird in general, that the fact that we have, just the way things are laid out and they just keep repeating and stuff like that. I've always been curious about this whole concept of time, but that's a different discussion. But, yeah, so you would have Saturday and then Sunday off, and you could actually have days off or whatever. But now we look at our triathlon calendar, and it's got the biggest, days are on the weekends. So it does probably feel a little bit daunting at times to people. I know it can, especially if you're sort of behind the 8 ball and trying to catch up, and it's like, oh, my big run. And then you go out and, I remember we used to go out and do the trace on Saturday mornings. I'd be like done with work and finally ready to relax. And I'd get home and be like, shit, I got to go ride 5 hours tomorrow at 6 in the morning. That felt, like adding insult to injury in some ways. And then we get done and I would be just zapped sometimes. And it would kind of take my Saturday and then Sunday or whatever. So yeah, it's a tough ball to juggle sometimes, I think. But also I think so much of it comes from overdoing, in particular workouts. Like I just mentioned the trace, sometimes I wouldn't be ready for those rides and I'd get them in anyway, and it would just completely wipe me out. I get Sunday in, and then I have to start the whole week over on Monday back at a job I hated and all that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of elements in there. And I think it is tricky sometimes to figure out what is a day off and what is rest. And, like whenever I have, 10 weeks out from a race and somebody's kind of starts feeling a little niggle in their knee or something like that, I'm like, just take your time. Don't push through that at all right now. I mean, you're in a good spot. I'd rather have you just, rest it, get it healthy, and then, have 9 weeks of good training versus, 10 more weeks of half on, half off, kind of struggling through an injury. So it is about recovery, man. I love what you said about a day off should be focused recovery, because I think that is the question, right? It's like, I remember when my dad said he was going to retire, I said, well, what are you going to do? He goes, nothing. He literally did nothing. He just sat around and he was tired all the time. And of course it didn't go well after that, but true. It's focused recovery is a real, thing. There's like so much you can do that, that's going to help you in the next block or whatever to kind of, I've been really hard on people, not hard, but like a lot of people are starting to have bigger runs right now. And like you said, it is getting hotter. And I'm like, dude, nice run. Now get serious about recovery. You've got, whatever, you get done at 10 in the morning or 11 on Sunday, and take the rest of the day to really recover from that, because that can really set off a few days of problems. If you just kind of get done and go have pancakes and then start drinking beers or mimosas on Sunday fun day, that's not an answer to what you just did. That may seem like relaxing for a couple hours, but then it's just going to come back to haunt you, So I like that focused recovery on your day off.
One of my favorite quotes, and this is especially true for age group athletes who, for the most part, train within a moderate amount of hours, right? The quote goes, "You're not overtrained, you're under recovered."
Yeah, I like that.
And that is true for 99 out of 100 triathletes. You are not overtrained, you are under recovered. And there's a lot of ways to look at that. Obviously, like, yes, there are ways to overtrain yourself, sure. But most people look at that or hear overtrained and think too much volume, too much intensity. Agreed, right? That could be the answer, right? Or going too hard too often, right? But what a lot of people don't consider is that when you, and I tell our athletes this all the time, I think I said it this last Wednesday in our Zoom call, was that, I traditionally, when writing your week, like to hedge my bet on you having more stress than you think you're going to have.
Yeah.
So again, doing less training. And we already, I think for the most part, train probably a lot less average hours wise than most coaches and coaches programs and in their philosophy is. Like we're really not low, but we're focused and intentional. But the point is that your focused and intentional work can only be focused and intentional if you're recovered enough to do it. And that goes not just from training stress, but from life stress. And most athletes are burning the wick at both ends. They live a life, they have a personality, they've created a culture and a calendar where it's hard to fit everything in. If you're that busy that it's a rush to fit it all in, then do you think you have really enough juice in the tank to perform well and as prescribed in a training session? Or that your day where you're supposed to be just doing, maybe a couple longer tempo, zone 3 style intervals and running or riding, that they're not. They're going to be zone 4, zone 5 from a physiological perspective, right? And so again, just think about that in a nutshell, right? So I'm your coach, and training in the heat is a great example of this. So for, just for, I guess, not argument's sake, but for just kind of give like a broader picture of the runs that I did in, I think, a week's time exact. So today I ran for 1 hour and 4 minutes, and my average heart rate was 146, and my average pace was 903. It was disgusting outside. Last week, I think it was actually on Friday. Saturday, Sunday. Here we go, doing like the old person thing. What day of the week was it? So it was Tuesday. So it was a little over a week ago. I did 11.3 miles with an 144 heart rate, right? So lower heart rate, and my pace was 8:42, and I felt way better. So I give you that example to say this. I'm the coach, and I say, all right, Mike, I'm writing out this plan. Again, you can't write it in real time. So I write it out, and I've got, on Thursday, I want you to do 2 15-minute zone 3 intervals on your bike, right? Zone 3 should be fairly easy based on your week, based on the layout, based on where the intensity is. No problem. Zone 3 doesn't ask that much of you, right? Just more steady state, kind of 70.3 style pacing. Well, the day before, okay, you have a huge work project. You're up till 1 o'clock in the morning. You've been super stressed, okay? You wake up and you didn't sleep great. You've been super stressed, right? So heart rate's higher, legs are more fatigued. You wake up and you're like, I got to get this ride done, and then I can't do anything else. I can't do the rest of the day because I'm too busy. So you hop on your bike, you do it, where your legs don't feel very good. So you're like having to force, right, this to hit your power goals on the zone on zone 3, and you're barely hitting them, and your heart rate's through the roof. From a overtrained / under recovered / getting the actual integrity of the workout in, we kind of failed in all areas because it wasn't an appropriate session because of the stress that you were under. The best case would have been, and which a decision you would have made, which is to just take it easy spin out, low, like A1, zone 1, whatever you want to call it. Very, 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 very chill to dissipate stress, not just dig a hole, but maybe even bury yourself in one. So now you've kind of cascaded 2 days in a row. And then the third day, right, you're going into a Friday, which end of the week, it's usually pretty hard with people because work stress is built up, like you're at your end of the week, levels. And then you got the weekend. So the training, right, as written, isn't overtraining, but you're going to feel overtrained, begin to have symptoms of being overtrained, right? Lack of sleep, super fatigue, very, very sore, maybe loss of appetite. The training wasn't the problem. It was that your life stress created an under-recovered environment for you to do the training, and then you still did it. So then you end the week, and there was no downtime. It was all, pedal to the metal, for lack of a better phrase. Mm. That's total under-recovery. It's not overtraining because from a prescription standpoint, but it is total under-recovering. And under-recovering is a huge issue you see in so many athletes, especially when you get towards long course racing, in the amount of damage they do with workouts they shouldn't be doing and how little they recover afterwards, right? And I think we all do this. Like we've had these situations or experiences where we've, got up, in the morning, we hurried around, we did our workout, we were super rushed. We didn't really have, we didn't drink afterwards. It was hot outside. We had a small, breakfast. We didn't eat nearly enough. And then our day was busy. All of a sudden it's 2 o'clock. And we haven't had lunch yet. And I wonder why I feel so terrible. You're like, what? Think about it, right? Like think about all those things. So if I'm a coach and I look at you and I say, all right, I know you want more hours. I know you want more this. I know you want that because you think that's the answer. But really, what I've been doing is giving you an hour and a half, and all you've been getting out of it is 45 minutes or 50 of quality. Again, quality not as intensity, because the word quality, everybody thinks intensity. Quality is quality, like quality meat. And what I want you to get out of it is I'd rather prescribe you an hour and have you get an hour out of it, full on, the way it's supposed to be done, plenty of recovery, plenty of, wiggle room for stress, than give you 90, and then your return on investment is only 35, 40 minutes. And you feel like shit tomorrow. And that is again, a huge issue with all triathletes, right? Because you're type A's, you're probably overscheduled, your calendar is too full, you keep adding to it, you can't say no, you want to do this, and then you wonder why your performance on race day fails. You wonder why. That's like, it was such an awesome quote from Jan Frodeno last week, like when leading to the PTO. He said, yeah, there's a lot of Tuesday afternoon world champions. Which is just so true, because you just want to be the best or want to do everything every day and go hard, but you never can put it together when it matters, because you go into races overtrained, under recovered, way too much stress, not just from, the last week or two, but as the training cycle as a whole. So again, a message to all triathletes, whether you're a coach, self-coach, working on a training plan. One of the very first quotes I think we had on the podcast, the way back in the day, was, it's better to go into a race 100% undertrained than 1% overtrained. And that is 100% true, because seriously, arguably, especially to Ironman start line, I would say 70% of the field goes into it overtrained, period. Or better said, under recovered from life and what they did from a training stress management and a life stress management, kind of a combination, as you see them kind of like both woven in. Because I told this to an athlete yesterday on the phone who has done like an amazing job, just tons of cross country skiing. They live overseas, like a ton of cross country skiing, and which is one of the best kind of, cross training sports you can do if you're trying to get better at cycling and running and swimming. And she was just kind of worried, like, hey, but I haven't done, nearly enough run, bike, and swim, the last, as I had last year. I said, well, let me ask you this. If you looked into Training Peaks and you removed these sports, right? You removed, because she's been great at logging cross-country ski miles and volume and even wearing a heart rate monitor sometimes. Like, so you remove cross-country skiing, you remove swimming, you remove cycling, you remove running, and you just look at total hours and minutes trained, it'll be more than last year this time of year. So you've actually done more, right? So take that visual, right, of a pie graph, or however you want to look at like a chart, and say, what if you didn't know the mental stress bucket, the emotional stress bucket, and the physical stress bucket? They weren't named. It was just accumulation. And a certain amount of stress was accumulated for hard life events, mentally, hard life events, emotionally, hard training, physically. If you just looked at it, I honestly think most athletes would look at their week and think, that's way too much. I got 200 and 560 stress points this week. I'm too much. I gotta slow my training down. But then if you would then, after they gave that answer, and then every individual bucket, right, mental, emotional, physical bucket, would then appear as the form, they would probably see that the mental, emotional bucket was higher, right, from a stress standpoint than the physical. But most athletes, again, like we try to compartmentalize that training stress is different than life stress, and it's not. Your body knows stress, and so you've got to do a much better job of, again, they also fall into I got to do more than do less. Do less. Do less. We are the coaching platform that will tell you to do less, not do more. Not to go grind out another 9 hours on the trainer, not to go do another Zwift race, not to go do another 5-hour run. Do less. Do less and be better, right? Be better, be fresher, feel good, right? Enjoy what you're doing. Do less and do it right versus doing more and doing it wrong.
Boy, yeah, you're so right on that, man. I mean, some days we feel really good, right? I always had this curiosity about, we kind of forget the 2 to 3 days before what and how that adds up to maybe a great training day or something like that. Because we forget what we ate and how it all kind of compiles and adds into the performance. And then some days we feel great. And I want to kind of go back to your run from this morning, right? The hot run, was that today?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you went out with And this is one of my things is you went out with any fluid or water or anything like that. And I like to think about these things. Like it wasn't your big run. I mean, I think we all get into prep mode, right, for the weekends a lot of time.
Mm-hmm.
And during the week, we kind of like, 30 minutes. That's no big deal. I'll just go nothing. And I always think about that because, the best way to drink water is usually with at least for me, this is my thing, is a little bit of salt and put some water in it, and not in huge doses, Like, for example, over the winter, a lot of times what I would do is get on the treadmill and I would feel great. And then I'd be like, I'm going to the pool and I still feel great. And I'd do a nice little swim, maybe a couple thousand or something. And then I get out and I sit in the sauna for, like 15, 20 minutes and I'd feel great. But then I get out and I would be thirsty as shit, and then I'd drink I'd be at the fountain and I just suck down water. That's not the right way to do it. So I always wonder about these shorter workouts that we're just kind of taken for granted and how they kind of accumulate over time, right? Like we're out running and now we're getting behind the 8 ball. We get done and drink a ton of water and that just flushes, nutrients out and everything like that because we need sodium and we need water and that's our energy source. That's what goes to the cells and gives you energy. I mean, that's energy. So when we go out and kind of just neglect this, on several workouts throughout the week, does that put you behind the 8 ball? And then you're kind of, maybe lucky enough to feel good on a Saturday ride. And then Sunday, it kind of catches up with you or whatever. And I just think it's important. I mean, I've always looked at sort of 30-minute recovery runs and things like that as a great time to put, kind of recover and put yourself back into, hydration shape. So these are some things to think about. I think that it's real easy to lay all your bottles out the night before a big ride and everything like that. But it's also easy to get on that bike and just kind of be like, that's only an hour. I won't drink anything or whatever. And then kind of forget about it. And then I think you just start digging holes as you go forward. And I really noticed that because it's so easy to feel good enough to do the workout and then kind of forget about it and then move forward. But then, it can set up like a domino effect and things like that. So I think it's just really important to pay attention to all the workouts, treat them with respect, even if they're short, and make sure you're taking care of your body. And if it's a recovery run or a recovery spin, still, that's a great time to refuel and kind of calibrate your body and get it back in a good spot, not to drain it even further. You know what I mean? Like, I think a lot of people do that. I just rode for an hour and a half. I didn't drink or whatever. No big deal. And I think especially when it starts warming up, then it becomes a really big problem. And then you start hitting these kind of lulls and you don't have it and you're tired all the time. And I think those are the kind of little factors that kind of come back to, just always being aware and always being on your game throughout training and everything you're doing, because it can kind of flip pretty quick if you're not paying attention. And it's just the little things, well, I mean, life is the little things. And I think these are the little things in our training that really can make a difference if we're paying attention to them.
And that's, and that's like, I think part of the hard part and the kind of like the double-edged sword of being like type A and always wanting to do more is that you don't know you've dug yourself a hole until you can't get out of it. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that's most people. You say yes to everything. You want to do everything. You want to do every group ride. You want to hang out with your buddies every single time. You want to stay out late with your friends. You want to have everybody over. You want to say yes to this. And like sometimes you just got to say no. Because what are you really getting out of it if you're too tired all the time to do anything worthwhile? And that is just again, it's a symptom of society now is that you have to say yes to everything. If you need help saying no, holler at me. I'll tell you, say no all the time. It's my favorite word. Nope, 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 nope. Like your time, my time is valuable. So it was yours. So use it with things and it's okay to say no. Same thing goes with training. Say no when you feel like you need to. And no isn't moving it to Sunday and moving it to Saturday and moving like 3 workouts. That's not saying no. That's showing total recklessness and irresponsibility and no objectivity. It really just no self-awareness that your week has gone to shit. You're way too stressed. You can't make time to train on Tuesday, Wednesday. So you know what? I'll do a triple on Saturday. No, you won't. Because you'll be too tired. You want to know why? Because you're stressed from what? Life. Do less. Do it better, right? Instead of adding more and continuing. And that's, again, like that's why, especially in triathlon, and why you see so many athletes leave the sport so quick after, one Ironman race or multiple where they can't get better. It's because everyone thinks the answer is more intensity, more volume, more this. It's always more. It's not about doing it right. It's about doing more.
Yeah.
I gotta get more hours. I gotta get more long runs. I gotta do more centuries. I gotta do more. Why don't you just do it fucking right and be recovered from it so you can do it right again? That's how you get better. Not doing it wrong over and over and over and over again. That's not a way to get better. You're just practicing doing it wrong and not doing it well. And if you're not doing it wrong or well, then you're not going to recover nearly as much from it. But again, it's so counterintuitive to the way, for whatever reason, most athletes have adopted the more and the longer has to be the way to be successful. It just has to. It's not true. And that's what also makes reaching to the highest level seem so unattainable. And that you can't get better because you always think it's more. Well, most of the time, you may have gotten to where you've gotten out of, not an accident, but because, in spite of yourself. But if you do less, you might get out more. But most of the time, I find most athletes, like there was one athlete that I started working with early this year that had worked with someone else for 3 or 4 years, and she said that it took her probably 2 or 3 months of the less training we were doing to feel like she was back and had some pop in life, because she had done so much training for so long that she wasn't performing well. But it took that long to shed all the fatigue and all that accumulated stress and rewire her brain to, that's okay. Doing less is okay. Feeling like you have energy is encouraged, right? Like I had to throw up on the trainer today, or I'm just destroyed. I can barely move. Then you're doing it wrong. You're doing it wrong. Like that's not how it's supposed to be done. That's under recovered multiple days in a row, plus too much training, right? Again, appropriate training under recovery equals too much training. It doesn't matter which way you slice it. Mm-hmm. And that is especially as we're getting into the time of year where more and more people are training for, Olympic 70.3s, fulls, half marathons, full marathons, ultra, whatever it is. Think about doing it right and doing it less and feeling good about it versus doing it wrong and being tired and feeling shitty about it. Like, which one do you think is gonna have the best performance? Fast and strong, not slow and tired. And that's honestly, like, usually if you are slow and tired in training, who the hell do you think you're going to be on race day?
Exactly, man. Slow and tired.
I mean, that's like, it's not a mystery, but you see it in 95% of everyone's comment in every, 70.3 Ironman Facebook page. Could barely get out of bed today, but I got a 7-hour ride and a 2-hour run on tap. I guess I'll slog my way through. Hashtag 100 days to Wisconsin. You're like, okay, well, good luck with that. I'll see you at midnight. Like, that's how you're going to feel. Like, if you never have good workouts and know that feeling, then you're doing too much. And the perfect question for every athlete is to ask your coach is to say, am I doing enough? I always feel good. Then we're doing plenty. We're doing plenty. If you're too tired all the time, then you're not, something's not right. You're not sleeping well. You're not eating right. Stress is way too high. You're not telling me about it. And that's why it's so important for athletes to articulate and communicate, the stress in their life, because, you just see their training and they're going to force it. But if life is like super stressful and you give less, you leave room, right? You leave a buffer. But most athletes, it's just like, it's overflowing. of stress, which just seeps into under recovery. And it's a reason why, again, most athletes PRs are in training and never in races, right? Mm-hmm. The Tuesday afternoon world champions, and they go and if you train tired and slow, you're going to race tired and slow. And that is not the way I would want to feel going into a race.
No, that's it. That's just it, man. It's like I've talked about this the whole time, is I just want to feel my best of the year on race day. How do you get there? It's not by overdoing it. I have a lot of athletes that are greens all the way across the board. And sometimes I'll check like a Thursday hard trainer ride, interval ride, and I'll go in there and they'll be like, yeah, didn't have it today, too much stress, I just took it easy. And it's just like a quick little thing that they know, and they're dealing with what's going on. And I think that's a huge part of it. I mean, you think about life and what it brings to people and how, like, I go back to my corporate days, and really when I do say this is that I feel like a lot of times that was my best training time, because I just kind of did the motions of the job, and training was what I really looked forward to. And it became my, like, I can't wait to get out of here and go ride. And it was something that I enjoyed. And it wasn't like I was physically tired, because I was kind of like I said, going through the motions at work a lot, but I had the energy, and so I looked forward to it, and it actually gave me more, versus like if you kind of get into ruts and you're wiped out from overworking and all these kind of things, and now, oh shit, I got to go work out. The minute you start saying that, something's off.
Yep.
It's like, it really is true, and I do feel like that at times. This week I felt like that. I was like, so I just knew something was going wrong. And man, it's like, I told my athletes the other, like I've gone for Wisconsin, right? And whatever that is, 17 weeks now. And I had it for a week, then I didn't have, a couple things came up or whatever. And now, but I told them, like, based on what I've done this year, which hasn't been a ton, but also based on the fact that I've done so many of these things now, that if I had to do one this weekend, I probably could slog through it. It would not be fun. It would be really slow. It would be ugly and painful and all these other things. But it's in there, probably, just because of the experience, I think. I mean, I could figure out a way. So, like, when I think like that, I'm like, all right, well, all I got to do is, just turn it around and get in the groove. If we've done 70.3s before, if we've done it before, because I think a lot of times we get into these, you've done them a lot, and then all of a sudden you find a funk, or things aren't going right in your life. And then the whole thing becomes a chore and a kind of a grinder. But just figure it out. That's kind of where I've been right now, is just kind of figuring out, okay, like, I love what you said about the energy piece and getting it back, because that's really what we want. We don't want to drag our shoes on and kind of sit on the, bed every day and kind of, struggle to get moving. That's not what we want, why we do this. So how do we find the right balance? How do we find the right energy levels? How do we find it all in our daily lives to make the training something that we look forward to and that feels good? And then we have energy, and that's the other thing I'll see. Some people are going through some pretty big blocks right now and big weeks, and they'll be like tired. Oh man, my legs are tired. And then like 2 days later, it's like, man, I felt great today. So it's like the ebb and flow of fatigue, which is manageable. But if it's there all the time, we gotta stop and think about it. I think, you got to figure out what's going on in the big picture.
You talking about, like, the longer stuff, and we can, in the theme of managing and recognizing stress, we can call today after this, but
walk away in your head.
Yeah. Walk away ahead is, if you, again, being objective, right? And you look at an athlete and you think, all right, well, you're getting close to your big race of the year. Let's say it's an Ironman, and you got two athletes, and they're both real tired. They're into the block. They have had a hard week. They're super stressed, and we got a 6.5 hour ride in the books. but they got to get up, cut their sleep short, from 8 hours to 5.5 or 6 hours, and just gonna be miserable while they do it. All right, get up and do it. You got this, man. You grind it out. Hashtag 5 days, till race day. Or you got an athlete's like, man, I just really need sleep. Sleeps in, gets the full 8 hours, and instead of doing the real long ride, cuts it an hour and a half short, but feels good, is able to go harder, do better, and has a better opportunity to recover afterwards. So he or she did less, but slept more, recovered more, and is set up for more success to recover again afterwards. That is the name of the game. If you want to do more recovery. If you want to do more recovery. Be better at fueling. Be better at sleep. Find a way to take a nap. Stop saying yes to every single thing. Stop doing that, right? Do more of saying no. Do more of chilling it out when you can, right? Not do more of life and do more of training and then wonder why you show up stale, right? On race day. That's just, again, it's hard, I think, for especially beginner athletes, to wrap their brain around, because they are so intimidated by the distance, and there's so many, honestly, like, just shit content sometimes that people put out about how much you always have to do, and it destroys people. And like, who wants to live your life fatigued as hell all the time and then never perform? Like, I want to make all these sacrifices to be tired and slow just to go out and perform the same. No thanks. Now, make less time sacrifices, feel better, have more energy, be stronger, get faster, perform better. Sign me up. I'll take that. So we hope you took this podcast and hopefully you can apply it to your life. Now it's going in your race season. And remember, more isn't always the answer unless it's more recovery. As always, we love you. We appreciate you if you're racing this weekend. Have a good one. Race smart. Execute and give your best effort. That's the only thing you can control. As always, go to our website, c26triathlon.com. It's our one-stop shop for all things coaching, camps, and community. You can click on the online store. That's our best way to support the podcasts. Buy some gear and some swag. It's a great way to support us. You can also go to iTunes or your favorite podcast platform. Leave us a solid review. And as always, if you have any questions about camps, click on that tab. Find one that's right for you. Same thing goes with coaching. If you need anything from Mike specifically, he is at crushingiron@gmail.com. Or if you need anything from me, c26coach@gmail.com.
All right, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, man. Have a good weekend.
All right, you too. See you.